All right.
Do you have some records you could show me? I'm really in need of seeing some new
I
records.
understand. It's rough if you're sitting around all day and just,
Well,
haven't looked at a record.
I live. We live up here in Rain City. I mean, you look at the weather forecast for the next month, and it says cloudy, raining, windy, cold.
Take me to a record store.
My wife usually says, "Don't go out. You'll get sick. Just stay in the house." I go, "I'll cooperate. I'll do it." Could I listen to my records? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, well, today we're going to do Rare Gems number 2.
Ooh,
Jazz.
that sounds different.
Jazz.
Whoa.
So let me see if I got the right bag here. All right.
That's why it's called grab bag. Is he takes them from his collection, puts them in a grocery bag, and brings them down to Dizzy's house. So it's truly a grab bag.
All right. So first up, heard of this artist?
Yeah, on 78. Or is it 33?
I don't know. I don't know. Let me look. I mean, it's the size of 78, but long playing micro groove.
Oh, that's 33 and third.
Okay.
Just that statement tells you it's 33 and third.
I kind of thought.
And that's Stone Martin, I think, is the person
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Drew
on
that.
one.
and Norman Grant's.
Norman Granz.
Yeah,
Clef
produced
Records.
it. Yeah.
Clef Records. All the things you like to
Yeah.
see in a rare gem. So, and the one I like is at Jazz at the Philharmonic, because I really enjoy all the jazz at the Philharmonic.
Well, that means she's got a great backup, full band.
Right, right.
Not just a combo, not
right.
quintet or whatever. This
Well,
is.
it could be. I mean, that'd
Yeah,
be
this
fine.
is. But I mean,
They're all there.
If there's any a person that ever deserved to have a full orchestra behind her, it's Billie Holiday. That is it.
All right, let's go to our next one. Essential, Dizzy Gillespie.
Well, it's.
Yeah, sure. So, hey, you know what?
Is this on Impulse or what do we got here?
This is on Verve.
Ooh,
Verve.
Verve.
So, look at the first track here.
The Champ. I love
Champ.
it.
Yeah, I looked at that and was like, hey, yeah, we've got one for me. So there's Dizzy. And
Here's things that come immediately to mind with Dizzy. Fine, upstanding man who could have taken many wrong roads. He was surrounded by other musicians that were flaunting, say, heroin and cocaine and other things, and he says, no. I'll smoke the weed, but I won't take anything beyond that. And he was a very disciplined man. If somebody had any gripe about working with Dizzy Gillespie, it was that he didn't put up with loafers or drug addicts or people that failed up to show for a show, took no excuses. You could be a great musician, you screw up, you're out of his band. And that's the kind of guy and that's the reason why I think most of all his records are so good. And people that stuck with him, it's like Duke Ellington, they wouldn't leave him for hell or high water because he was such a great musician, wrote great charts. People envied him. He was the envy of the jazz world, both as listeners and as people who performed.
And with all that, he still had a sense of humor.
That's right. Great sense of humor.
I went to go see him at Jazz Alley in his later years. May have been one of his last performances here in Seattle. And he brought out some little toy that made some musical stuff and cracked up the whole audience with it. And it's nice to see a musician that's dedicated, and focused.
Maybe you could tell me more about the history where he has the horn bent.
Well, it's because usually when you play trumpet, you tend to angle the trumpet down a little bit, and he wanted to angle the trumpet down a little bit, but the mic was up here. So to get the sound up here, he bent the end of the trumpet, of the bell, up so that he could play down, but still the sound would play up. Or even if you're in a concert setting, the sound would play up to the the upper part of the audience. So that was the trick with that. And then someone finally designed or maybe they designed it for him at that time.
No,
I
he,
don't know
he
which.
he actually bended himself. I know that for a fact.
Oh,
He
okay.
bended himself.
And then
And he was going to experiment with it and see how,
Eventually
and
he
he
did.
liked the sound better.
right. And the other thing that he always did was he blew out his cheeks, and that's always one of those things that band instructors tell you don't do that. Yeah, maybe you can hit a high note now, but you lose all that muscle in your cheeks. You aren't going to be able to hit some of these high notes later on, or we'll never get any higher than that, or whatever that this. But I'm sure it's argued. I've seen plenty of other trumpet players that have done that and sound pretty good, play high and everything else. So it worked for Dizzy, and it also was another part of his act. I mean, you see that, and that's like, oh, that's kind of unusual. And so
He was also a jazz ambassador. He went on Norman Grantz's Philharmonic, Jazz at the Philharmonic. And after Louis Armstrong couldn't do it anymore, Dizzy took that over, and
Right.
he's a jazz legend, and somewhat forgotten today, but he shouldn't be, because
it shouldn't be.
no. And he also experimented, was one of the first ones to go and experiment with Latin jazz and to bring very good Latin musicians who they weren't going to get any publicity or notoriety or ever, but he brought that all to it.
Arturo Sandoval, he did a record with him,
Yeah.
and that's a good, fantastic.
But he
record
also
as well.
would bring
Sure.
the drummers in and all that. I mean, he had all kinds of drummers.
Right,
and things.
right. So another fine
Oh,
one.
terrific! I
So
like
we're having
it.
some fun rare gems here. So next up,
You're scoring, man.
all these. I try. We go for rare gems. I figure let's.
Well, you know what
Awesome.
strikes me about Stan Getz and J.J. Johnson is, I don't know about you, but I love the trombone, and
do
there's
too.
not enough trombone in this world for me. And Stan Getz was, of course, a master on the saxophone, and again had quite a bit of a leaning towards. He brought Latin jazz and
History.
yeah. Gilberto, all the Gilbertos. So Astrid Gilberto and Juan Gilberto, and there were so many of them, but J.J. Johnson, and there are on Columbia some J.J. Johnson led bands, and those are, to me, gold. And this is on Verve, yeah. Verve, Blue Note, and Prestige were at the time, almost couldn't go wrong with one of those records. And still, if someone sees something on Blue Note, Prestige, and
Impulse.
Impulse,
Oh,
and
Impulse.
Impulse, definitely.
Maybe Impulse?
I'm sorry I forgot Impulse, because they were definitely there.
Have you heard this artist?
I have. He died at the age of 44, born in, I think, 1928. So many good artists, great artists were born in 1928, and died way too young. And Coltrane had such an amazing career in that he started, actually, his first records were on 78s, though few people remember that. He was a member of other people's bands before he ever had his own band. And so he's on early recordings in the late 40s. And then in 50, he hooked up with Miles Davis. And
That's a good choice.
kind of Blue came out of that. But before that, he was a sideman on Prestige on records with Miles Davis.
Did
And
you say Miles Davis?
I did.
Well, here's Miles Davis.
Oh, and this is a precious record.
All-Star Sextet.
You're holding gold in your hands. I would like jazz artists to wear sunglasses. I don't know what it is, but yeah, you couldn't get those sunglasses off of Miles Davis. You saw him at night, you saw him anywhere, you saw him, Miles Davis. But here he is with Milt Jackson, the vibist, and that is fantastic.
Nothing but good vibes there.
Yeah. I also like Modern Jazz Quartet, in which he was a writer and member of, and that's fabulous music. That's and these early recordings. Why don't you read a few titles off of that for me?
Dr. Jekyll,
No.
Minor March, Biddy Diddy, Changes. He's got Ray Bryant, Arthur Taylor, Milt Jackson, Percy Heath on bass, Jackie McLean on alto sax.
What a group! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
So
If you're a jazz lover, you probably notice those are all fantastic. Jackie McLean, Art Taylor. Come on.
okay, how about these two artists?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was in junior high at College of San Mateo, they had a listening library, and I put on Ella and Louie, a record where they did Gershwin, I think. And anyway, they played Porky and Bess. They were doing Porky and Bess. And all of a sudden, when the first track came on, I thought, what happened here? They must have forgotten that I only wanted to hear this. It must be on in the whole room. And I took my headphones off right away, and I couldn't hear anything. Well, that recording is so good. It sounded like it was right there on me. I thought it filled the room. I thought it felt the world. That is so good. Yeah, and that is a classic record. But the two of them together, Louis Armstrong,
whoopee.
you wouldn't think he had such a great voice, but you match him up with a person like Ella Fitzgerald, and you just go, these two, what an amazing combination.
I always loved when she would do an impression of
him.
Louis.
Yeah,
that was always
yeah.
funny when she was
Yeah.
Okay, what's next? Here's one. We've mentioned John Hammond. Here's John Hammond, Spirituals to Swing.
Well, this is a historic concert, and it's because it's bridging between 40s and 50s and 60s. And it's bringing together all these
1967.
musicians and it's showcasing both the old, the present, and the new. It's trying to, show it all. And if you read a history of jazz, they'll always, in whatever book you're reading, there's so many of them, they'll always refer to this concert. These are the jazz legends at the time, ones that were fading, ones that were current, and ones that they thought they had a bright future.
George Benson Quartet.
See what I mean? There was a future, they thought.
Marion Williams.
That's an older generation.
Cafe Society Band. Joe Turner. Pete Johnson.
That's all
John
past.
John Handy. Big Mama Thornton.
Past.
Count Basie and his orchestra.
Past.
And let's see. Joe Turner, Count Basie Orchestra. Used for John.
Yeah.
So, I just remember I always enjoyed listening to this one. So, next up.
A lot of vocalists in that. And when we think of, we had Coltrane and we had Miles Davis and all of a sudden in the same category, jazz, there was in a sweeping double set record, vocalists, everything, and some of the same artists that recorded solo and in groups.
So, jam session number 1. Norman Granz.
Well, then we would expect people like Oscar Peterson,
Yep.
Lester Young.
I have to look a little deeper. I'm not wearing my glasses, but yeah, probably. Ray Brown, J.C. Hurd, Barney Cassell. Another great jam session, and again that artistry, I believe, is a
Stone Martin
as well. So, fun for the cover, fun for the artist, fun for the music, and music number 1. Great stuff, just great stuff.
I made a mistake in my record collecting career that I would come across albums with Stone Martin artwork on the covers, like this, for different artists or jams and things like that. But the record would be trash. But I should have bought it.
The record
just for the cover. Just for the cover. And then worried about getting the record later.
I don't know. I've done some of that myself where I've bought things and it went.
I should have done it. If folks, if you ever come, I remember one time I was in a Salvation Army store and there was like a box this thick of that type of record, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd pull out and look at the record and I'd go, "Oh my! This pay $1 for this?
No.
Pay $1 for this?
Yeah.
I can't do that. I couldn't see my way around
Yeah,
that."
well,
I'll bet the next guy that knew anything about jazz took them all.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, that was the right
don't-
thing to do.
I don't know.
I
think you
remember
might
one
make the right
time
move.
looking at 45s with you in a thrift store,
Uh-huh.
and we came across 45s with the likes of Miles Davis. And I was the first one to find them, and I said, "Hey, I can't do this. This record is trash." And you go, "That's okay. I'll take all of them."
Oh,
And you did. All the 45s of Miles Davis and the likes. And they were on Prestige. Prestige made 45s. And who would think that? And
yeah, they're rare to find.
I
that's
saw
for sure.
Pacific.
They're rare to find.
I've seen Pacific Jazz Records, which were a West Coast label. It was really small too, and they made 45s.
But
And
I
who
got
would
some
think
of those records. I've got a Dwayne Eddy. I've got the record. I'm still waiting for the cover. And I've been waiting for 30 years. I'm just like, well, you know, maybe I'm not going to
Maybe you
get
better go check out
a
Discogs.
go-go. Maybe I better check in.
Because I know where you've been looking, thrift stores. And,
Yeah,
and,
maybe.
and-
I haven't looked at all lately.
yeah,
But,
I
mean,
know.
When I was looking, I kept thinking.
Well,
yeah,
wait, later.
all right, well, that's the end
She
of,
wouldn't hold a grudge,
Rare
though.
Gems number 2. And we'll catch you
That
next
was a
time.
good collection.
I liked it.
I was pretty impressed with that.